So in this part two coverage of OC1 leashes and Capsize and recovery, I'd like to just touch on three different types of leashes or lease arrangements that you can consider. So Aria Connection Hawaii were amongst the first to bring in these Inertia systems, retractable systems that are inbuilt into the canoe. And they do a few things. One is they remind you constantly to leash up because they're right there, between your legs. And you can obviously just unclip them and not have it there at all. But the other advantage is that when you are wearing it, the actual leash component doesn't fall into the footwell and create entanglement issues with the foot pedals. So, I think when these came out, originally it was a great reminder, and it was a great service to people to know that, look, leashing up is important. The only caveat I would say is, they are a mechanical system, so you've got to spend some time maintaining them, and there is potential for fault. So just be aware that you've got to keep on top of their efficiency. So failing that, what was always used prior to that, and even continues to be used, is basically just a boogie board style leash, which is a coil with two cuffs either end. One cuff goes on the yaku, and the other goes to the knee. Now they've been modified. You have to slightly larger cuffs for the knee attachment. I've used a few of them, and some of them are quite appalling. Some of them are okay. They're all, frankly, they're all only ever going to be okay, never going to be brilliant, but they do the job. So in that respect, brilliant. But actually, some of the practical sort of realities of living with them can be a bit difficult. I say that because once they're attached, they do cross down into the footwell, and they can get entangled. And that's annoying. If you were to fall, they create some tension between from your leg back up to the yaku, or the canoe capsizes. And then you right it, there can be issues depending which side you fall of the leash wrapping around the canoe. So it's not a straightforward process in terms of once there is an issue where you come to need it because you haven't fallen. But that being said, look, it does the job. There's not an issue there. I'm wearing this on my right knee, as you can see. Why the right over the left? Because if the canoe were to capsize, I always come off on the right-hand side, and then I rewrite it. The issue is that there's a shorter distance from the right knee to the yaku. If I wear it on the left, it's a greater distance. And by nature, coil leashes are quite short, and actually with the amount of tension that's created by wearing on the left, the distance is greater. The tension is very quite significant. So then the recoil's there, so it's constantly trying to pull the canoe back toward you. So in many cases, you're better off just to disconnect it, get on, then put it back on again. So that's the minor inconvenience that you could face. Also, when you're trying to swim around this thing pulling on your leg, it really is quite annoying, to be honest, when you're trying to just sort yourself out. So what I'd like to do is serve up a third option, and that third option is the idea of wearing a waist-worn leash system. And I conceived this idea just myself when I was living in Fiji and paddling in pretty crazy waters, no rescue craft around, no mobile phone service, spooky waters. I thought, well, I should look at just a few other issues of how I can really up my game in terms of this the wearing a system. So I was doing a lot of stand-up, and it was stand-up paddleboarding. You can use a waist-worn system for river or downwind, and it's quite well known. But what I thought was, well, why not apply it or adapt it to an OC1? So, which is what I did. And I found the system to be absolutely brilliant compared to years of wearing a leash around the knee. This was just a refreshing change. You can see here, hopefully you can just see there's a leash around. I'm wearing basically like it's a belt around my waist, and then the leash runs, the coil runs behind me to the rear yaku. Now, the beauty of the system is that you don't know you're wearing it. It's just not there. It's on, but it's doing its job. The other great thing about this system is if you need to release it quickly, you can through just a pull a cord on a toggle, and it releases very easily, as against trying to struggle with Velcro, which is just simply is not as quick release as you'd like to think that it should be. There are pin systems you can pull, but then you've got to struggle to put the pin back in. It's a complete nightmare. So, and there are times when you really want to get rid of the leash quickly. You know, you could be coming in through breaking surf and say, right, you know, I should detach it because I don't want to risk, you know, a hoolie and be caught up in the rinse cycle wearing a canoe basically. Or it could be in a race where you come to the beach when you want to take it off and run over the beach. It could be that you need to dismount and sort some rigging issues out, or quickly swim to something and back, whatever it might be. But the quick release system, it should be a quick release system, not just paying lip service to an idea, a concept of a quick release system. So what is it? Well, basically, it consists really of just a very simple piece of webbing with a buckle and a little lanyard with a little ball on the end of it, which you pull, and that just opens the buckle and it slides free, and happy days, you're free of it. Meanwhile, you know, the cord is running back to the rear yaku. Now you can see here, I've just got imagery of just how I just went about it in Fiji, just setting it up to work for myself. Now, so far as I'm aware, these aren't available for OC1 paddling, but there's nothing to stop you going and purchasing it from a sub store or wherever, and just you know, modifying it to do the job, and choose whatever record leash you want then. So you can see the lower picture on the right here. I'm just pulling the toggle and it's breaking free, and the buckle opens. So what I'd like to do is just cover a few little things here. I mean, in terms of the rolling over process, if the canoe is going to capsize, you know, a lot of people will be on the left struggling to keep the armor down, for example, and you know, which is sort of a little bit counterintuitive. When in fact, if you're on the right hand side, you learn bracing strokes, that's the better side to be on, you know, in the rougher water. In actual fact, of course, it takes a lot of people to sort of a lot of time rather to figure that out and have the skills and the confidence to do it. The other advantage is if you do find yourself actually going over, you can actually brace or slow the rate of roll down, which is good from the point of view of slowing the forward momentum of the canoe. It also is good from the point of view of protecting the armor and the integrity of the rigging as it's going over. And you stay more sort of compartmentalized. You know, you're keeping everything together, not falling wayward of the canoe. If you come off on the left and the canoe continues to roll over, you know, you're going to find your leash is going to wrap around the canoe. That's not a good thing. So, you know, there are just little things you need to sort of be aware of in this rolling over process. And of course, again, as I try to stress, you've got to go and practice. It's the only way you're going to find out for yourself. So moving on to what happens if you're wearing your leash to the leg, as you come off, what will happen is that there's probably a better example. Okay, here we go. So let's say you come off on the right hand side, you fall in between the yakus. Here I am, I'm just grabbing very quickly responding by grabbing hold of the yaku and pushing it back up, possibly rolling, pushing, getting the hand underneath the hull. Not as easy as it looks. Looks easy, not so easy, in fact. But if you can do it, do it. Be careful, because you don't want to slap the armor down. That's something you do. Go to lower it down gently. But look at the tension on the leash, the coil. That's my wearing it on the right. You can already see how much stretch there is in that coil there. And of course, that means every time I move my leg, I push the canoe back into my face. That's really not very helpful. If I had to go and swim and get something or whatever, it also continues to be a hindrance. If it were attached to the left leg, that distance would be even longer and the leash would be even tighter, and the issues would just escalate. So you might want to consider just disconnecting it before you get back on the canoe, frankly, because it could be a lot easier. On the other hand, look at where I'm wearing the waist-worn leash. Look at the lack of tension in the coil. You can see there quite clearly. the beauty is my legs are free. They're not being hindered, not being restricted, not being pulled upon. I'm free to swim normally and to remount without any restriction or pull down whatsoever. So bear that in mind. Yeah, that's one of the top advantages. So I covered just briefly how to get back on the canoe if you were if you're trying to get back on from the right. It's not that easy because obviously there's no real counterpoise to this in so much you have to get your body weight over the canoe, stay low, place your hands appropriately, maintain balance, get your bum over, get it in the seat. It's tricky. And again, this is something you need to go and practice. Now, again, the positioning of your leash in relation to getting on is critical. So in other words, if it's pulling on the leg, that's a problem. If it's at the back, like I've got here, where in the waist-worn leash system, I'm climbing on and there's no issue with my legs at all being restricted. And over here, here's another option where I've disconnected the leash, swum under the canoe before righting it, pulling it over. Again, it's not that easy. Note to cushion the impact of the arm as it comes over by stretching a hand out and just reducing that impact. Because again, try both ways. Another way of doing this is this sort of rollover technique where you can potentially, you've come off the canoe, you're on the right, you're between the acus, you can then do like a bit of a bear hug and slide yourself over the hull, roll over, and you take the canoe with you. Again, it looks easy. Some people actually quite like this method. I think it's quite functional, works really well. Some people worry about scratching the hull, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, it's fine if you're just gentle and you just slide over. You don't want to put any pressure on the hull, obviously, but it is definitely a legitimate way of handling the capsize. You can see the leash there, for example, the waist-worn system quite clearly, how it looks. What I do, in the book, I do cover various sort of scenarios. So this is rolling the canoe over from the non-armor side. Leash is still attached to the upper calf and the front yaki. You can see the problem immediately. The only option now is to remove the leash, climb on, or duck dive to non-armor side and remount from there. And this is one of the real dramas where we're having it set up like this. If you were to fall off onto the non-armor side, onto the left, the canoe rolls obviously over to the right, you find yourself on the opposite side, then you've got, it seems great, but you pull the canoe back over, but then you basically got the leash wrapped around the canoe. So again, you won't know these things until you go out and practice and find out for yourself, and then you'll go, oh, okay, not so easy. Right, then, so throughout for the rest of this chapter, I just talk about taking spare paddle, and there's a couple of examples. People have given some examples here. Lisa Martin from Kailua has given a bit of a story there, and then we've got Chris O'Keefe, California, talks about his experiences. Safety grab bags. What would you take in a grab bag of safety equipment? Always worth considering on the longer, adventurous type paddling outings. Something about PFDs, paddling apparel. These are all related to safety, obviously. So there you go. Hope it's been useful, and stay safe.